For the next 52 minutes or so, Bob Chapman of the internationalforecaster.com joins us. He really doesn't need any introduction. One of the biggest private gold and silver brokers at the time, very successful stock trader, had one of the biggest newsletters ever until he retired. He came back at the internationalforecaster.com. Of course, I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com, and I've got so much I want to talk about with Bob Chapman today on the economy, where he sees the dollar going, gold. He predicted 6 months ago that J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs would try to bring down Greece and Spain. It's now in the news that they're engineering this, even in Reuters. Herman von Rompuy's running around declaring world government. Fox News and AP yesterday published a secret UN document calling for global governance, a $45 trillion wealth transfer to private banks. Gordon Brown publicly, as you know, last week, the head of England, unelected prime minister, said that world government is here, a new constitution of the G20, of private banks, that you will pay your taxes to. Herman von Rompuy also said that in European Union Parliament earlier this week. Nigel Farage, European Union Parliament member from England, got in his face about it. He's now being censured. Nigel Farage, rampage of rudeness. Yes. So we're going to talk about this with Bob Chapman and a lot more today. Bob, good to have you here with us.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here again. And I caught the end of the last hour, and it was eloquent and from the heart, and I applaud you for it. You never know why you do what you do in life, and I can't help but think that there's designs for everybody, the place that they play, in the time that they're here on Earth. And I could never really understand myself why, as a newsletter writer, I was so successful. And all I can say is his hand's on my shoulder. Otherwise, I just don't know how I could have done it.
Well, they say the universe bends towards justice. And if we'll just stand up against evil, God will do the rest. But it's the simple commitment. It's like a spiritual decision that you make, and then everything else flows from that. Because if you make the right decision in your heart and soul, then you will be guided.
And that's
you agree with that statement?
That's the explanation. That's the reason.
Bob, there's so much going on. Let's break down what the global bankers are doing right now, what is transpiring, where the economy's going. The most important info, all the economic numbers, as you know, pouring in, that this depression is now deepening. As you said 2 years ago it would do. It's incredible.
Well, I think some of the things you touched on in the introduction to the hour are very salient and important. I think what is going on is that, and I talked about this 4 or 5 months ago on the program, I think they are starting to begin the beginning of the phasing in of allowing deflation within the world economy, never mind the United States, to start getting stronger. And they did that by, for the last 9 months or so, reducing what used to be called M3 from a plus 17.4% down to 3 or 4 or 5%. And that's very important because they're pulling the cookies off the table, and the kids can't have them anymore. And, or as they say in Wall Street, removing the punch bowl.
In layman's terms, over $50 trillion globally that private central banks have stolen from their governments that have been given to them, and now they're just cutting the money off of the people and hoarding it all for themselves.
I think that's a fair statement, and that's borne out by the drop in loans to small companies, medium-sized companies, and individuals of about 27%. And the money that they have on deposit with the Fed. The loans they get from the Fed are back at the Fed getting more money than what they paid for them. And so that's a taxpayer subsidy. And that money could get monetized during this process over the next couple of years. And if you remember, I said, I thought perhaps by the end of the year or certainly by the end of next year, there could be a large meeting of countries, like the Smithsonian meeting of the 70s and the Plaza Accord of 85 and the Louvre Accord of 87. And they would revalue and devalue currencies. They would have a debt settlement. They would try to form an international trading unit. And
And you said all of that a year ago. You said that months ago. And now, 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, Australian headline, 24 top central bankers meet in secret, I guess, to make the real decisions. And they'll have public rollouts later next month in Canada. I mean, are you saying it looks like they've now made their decision?
Right. And I think the tip-off was about 9 months ago, maybe almost a year ago, when we saw the European Central Bank in particular lead the way from a plus 11.3 M4, which is the same as M3, down from 12.8% to virtually zero. And in fact, it's below zero right now, a wee bit. And that was followed by the United States and Great Britain. And so what they're doing is they're removing a lot of capital from the system. And the only reason you would do that is twofold. Number one, if you thought there was going to be hyperinflation, you'd do that. Or you want to bring the system down. And I think they're in the process of taking the system down. And one of the things I've noticed here, and I'll get into how they are going to proceed. One of the things I noticed is the method that they've taken by taking out Greece as an example. Anybody who has written about or is a politician in Europe or a businessman in Europe knows that Greece and Italy should have never been in the in the Eurozone. There was only 14 members, and then they expanded it to 16 out of the 27 nations within the European Union. So not everybody belongs to the Eurozone. A lot of people don't know that. And so I think they have now plucked Greece out as the example, because I mentioned in my last issue, which came out on Wednesday, there's 16 countries that are bankrupt. And I think they're going to herd them all toward the edge. And then I think they're going to have this meeting I speak of, and I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it could be anywhere between October and the end of next year. And the reason I say October is, if they were smart, what they would do would be to have a financial crisis in October so that they could shut down markets, at least temporarily, and not have an election in November in the United States. And the reason why is all the people who are in the House and the Senate who have been paid off by these illuminists behind the throne, so to speak, they're all going to get kicked out of office, because you've seen the polls. I mean, they're dreadful. I mean, the people want everybody out, practically. And so if they were smart, they wouldn't have an election. It would be temporarily put off, probably for 2 years.
All right, I want you to keep walking through this, Bob, but let me throw some things in here that back up what you said 7-8 months ago, that embassies were getting rid of their dollar stocks and moving to other currencies and gold. We see that being set up. Citibank, over the weekend, and it was confirmed on Monday, we went to Citibank's website, the feds told them to get ready to hold funds for 7 days so they can then devalue and hold your money throughout that period. And now all the other big banks are announcing that the same thing is being prepared. And suddenly Von Rompuy, Brown, and all these key globalists, and of all of them, the real leader of the New World Order right now is Gordon Brown, because England's the kingpin in this, for those that don't know. He said last Friday in a speech, the New World Order is here, global government is here, we're going to have a global constitution by the banks, we're taking over the planet. We played that on Monday. So they clearly, again, bring in the crises, offer the next big solution. And I agree with you, they're certainly looking at doing this. I want to walk through how you think they will do it, but first, is there any way to stop them? And your comments on why they're crowing about this.